call came at 2:47 a.m., jolting me from a deep sleep. My sister's ringtone, the one I'd specifically set to ignore, kept chiming persistently. "For 6 rings," I finally answered, if only to stop the noise. "What is it, Celeste?" Through broken sobs, my sister's voice crackled over the line. "Nora, I need help. Please. We have nowhere else to go. My name is Nora, and I should have let that call go to voicemail. 20 years of cleaning up Celeste's messes had taught me better, but old habits die hard when it comes to family." "What do you mean we?" I asked, already dreading the answer. "The boys and me. We left Grant. Things got complicated. Can we stay with you? Just for a few days until I figure things out?" I sat up in bed, switching on my bedside lamp. The digital clock's red numbers seemed to mock me as I contemplated my response. My perfectly ordered life was about to be disrupted again. "Celeste, I have patients early tomorrow. I can't just—" "Please," she cut in, her voice breaking. "Oliver and Lucas are sleeping in the car. We've been driving for hours. That got my attention." "You're in your car? Where exactly?" "Your driveway." I walked to my window and pulled back the curtain. Sure enough, there was Celeste's beat-up Honda Civic parked crooked across my driveway. In the dim streetlight, I could make out 2 small shapes huddled in the back seat. Jesus Christ, Celeste. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. "Come inside before someone calls the police." 5 minutes later, I stood in my kitchen watching my sister herd her exhausted sons through the door. Oliver, 10 years old and already showing signs of his mother's dramatic flair, clutched a ratty backpack to his chest. 7-year-old Lucas trailing behind him, thumb firmly planted in his mouth, a habit I thought he'd broken years ago. Celeste looked worse than I'd ever seen her, and that was saying something. Her normally perfect makeup was smeared, dark circles under her eyes making her look haunted. She'd lost weight since I'd last seen her at Mom's funeral 3 months ago. "The guest room is made up," I said, keeping my voice low. "The boys can take the pull-out couch in my office." "Thank you," Celeste whispered, but wouldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew this wasn't just another of her typical crises. Something was seriously wrong. I helped get the boys settled, noting how they had barely any belongings with them. Oliver kept watching his mother with worried eyes, while Lucas fell asleep almost instantly on the couch. Back in the kitchen, I found Celeste sitting at my counter, staring into space. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" She jumped slightly, as if she'd forgotten I was there. "It's complicated. It always is with you. I started making tea chamomile, the kind our mother used to make when we were upset. Does Grant know where you are?" "No." She accepted the mug with trembling hands. "And he can't find out. Promise me, Nora." "What did you do? Why do you assume I did something?" Her defensive tone was all too familiar. "Maybe he's the one who—" "Because I know you, Celeste. And because you're hiding something. I can see it in your face." She took a shaky sip of tea, then set the mug down carefully. "You're right. There's something I haven't told anyone. Not even Grant. But I can't. Not tonight. Please, can we just sleep?" I wanted to push harder, to demand answers. But looking at her now, I saw something I'd never seen in my little sister before: genuine fear. "Fine. But tomorrow we talk. Really talk. No more games, no more half-truths. Deal?" She nodded, relief flooding her features. As I watched her disappear into the guest room, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just invited chaos back into my life. What I didn't know then was that this night would change everything, not just for Celeste and her boys, but for all of us. And that the revenge my sister was running from would eventually find its way to my doorstep. Morning arrived with the subtle chaos I'd been dreading. I found Oliver and Lucas sprawled across my living room floor, surrounded by scattered Lego pieces, while cartoons blared from the TV at a volume that made my teeth ache. "Boys," I called out, lowering the volume, "breakfast in 5 minutes." And please pick up these toys before someone steps on them. Neither child moved. Oliver kept building his creation while Lucas continued watching the screen, thumb firmly planted in his mouth. The scene was so different from my usual quiet mornings with Ava, who was always organized and ready for school without prompting. Speaking of Ava, my daughter appeared in the kitchen doorway, her face a mix of confusion and annoyance. "Mom, why is Aunt Celeste sleeping in our guest room?" "It's complicated, honey. Family emergency." I started cracking eggs into a bowl, trying to maintain some semblance of our normal routine. "Where's your aunt now?" "Still sleeping. Like her kids should be, instead of trashing our living room at 7 in the morning." I shot her a warning look. "Ava." "What?" "I'm just saying what you're thinking." She grabbed her lunch from the fridge. "I've got debate club after school, remember?" "Don't wait up." The front door closed behind her with more force than necessary. I couldn't blame her. This was exactly the kind of disruption I'd always protected my kids from. Kind that seemed to follow Celeste everywhere. "Something smells amazing." Celeste appeared in the doorway, looking marginally better than last night but still wearing yesterday's clothes. "Boys, come eat breakfast." Neither child moved. "Oliver." "Lucas." "Now, please." Still nothing. I watched as she shrugged it off, helping herself to coffee. The old familiar irritation bubbled up, the same feeling I'd had watching our mother clean up Celeste's messes, make excuses for her behavior, praise her potential while ignoring her actions. "They need structure," I said, keeping my voice neutral as I plated the eggs. "Consistent consequences. They're just tired from the drive. And traumatized, probably." Celeste sipped her coffee. "Speaking of which, I need to figure out getting them enrolled in school here." I nearly dropped the spatula. "Here?" I thought this was temporary. "Well." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Grant knows all our usual spots. And the boys love it here with their favorite aunt, don't you, sweeties?" Oliver finally looked up. "Dad's going to find us anyway." "He always does." The resignation in his voice made my stomach clench. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from my receptionist. "First patient arrived early. Everything okay?" "I have to get to work," I said, grabbing my keys. "We'll talk about school and everything else tonight." "But Celeste, you need to." I know. Clean up, keep the boys quiet, stay out of sight." I remember the rules from last time. 3 years ago, when she'd shown up after totaling Grant's car and emptying their joint account. She'd stayed 2 weeks before disappearing without a word, leaving me to explain to a heartbroken Oliver why his mother had gone. "There won't be a this time if you pull that again," I said quietly, so the boys couldn't hear. "I mean it, Celeste. No more games." She nodded, but something in her expression made me uneasy. I'd seen that look before, right before she'd forged Mom's signature on college withdrawal papers, right before she'd borrowed my car and disappeared for a month, right before she'd announced her pregnancy at my wedding reception. As I drove to work, my mind kept circling back to Oliver's words about Grant. There was something off about this whole situation. Celeste had run from Grant before, but never like this, never in the middle of the night, never with such fear in her eyes. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, but the message notification made my blood run cold. "Dr. Caldwell, this is Detective Martinez. We need to speak with you regarding your sister's whereabouts. Please call back as soon as possible." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, wondering what exactly I'd invited into my home this time. I returned home that evening to find my house eerily quiet. Too quiet. The boys' Legos were still scattered across the floor, half-eaten sandwiches abandoned on the coffee table. Celeste's purse lay open on the kitchen counter, her phone next to it. Detective Martinez's voicemail had haunted me all day. I called back during lunch, but only reached his voicemail. Now, standing in my silent house, that uneasy feeling returned tenfold. "Celeste." I called out, moving toward the guest room. Boys. A muffled sob from upstairs stopped me. Following the sound, I found Oliver huddled in my home office closet, clutching something to his chest. Oliver? Where's your mom? He looked up, tears streaming down his face. She said not to tell. My heart dropped. Tell what? Instead of answering, he held out what he'd been holding, a manila envelope, stuffed with what looked like hundreds of thousands in cash. I found it in Mom's bag, he whispered. She saw me looking and got really mad. Then she took Lucas to get ice cream. That was hours ago. I sat down next to him, my legs suddenly weak. How long ago exactly? After lunch. She said they'd be right back, but he wiped his nose with his sleeve. Dad always says Mom takes things that aren't hers. Is that what this is? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Detective Martinez. Dr. Caldwell, his voice was grave. We need to discuss the incident at Riverside Community Bank yesterday. Your sister was identified on security footage during an armed robbery. A security guard was shot. The room spun. I gripped the doorframe, trying to steady myself. Is he? He's in critical condition. Dr. Caldwell, if you're harboring your sister, you need to understand the severity. I don't know where she is, I cut in, watching Oliver's face crumple. She took her younger son for ice cream hours ago and hasn't returned. I just found evidence that might be related to your investigation. There was a pause. Stay where you are. We're sending officers to your location. I hung up and pulled Oliver close, feeling him shake against me. It's going to be okay, I lied, wondering how many times Celeste had fed him the same empty promise. 30 minutes later, my house was crawling with police. They photographed the envelope of cash, took statements, and asked endless questions about Celeste's behavior and possible destinations. I answered mechanically, my mind stuck on one horrifying thought. My sister had used her 7-year-old son as a shield for her getaway. Mom! Ava appeared in the doorway, eyes wide at the scene before her. What's happening? Where's Lucas? Question hit me like a physical blow. Lucas. Sweet, thumb-sucking Lucas, who'd already been through so much. Now just another pawn in Celeste's game. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. Take care of Oliver. Lucas is safer with me. That's from her, I told the detective, hands shaking as I handed over my phone. She's not coming back this time, is she? He gave me a sympathetic look. We'll find them, Dr. Caldwell. But right now, we need to discuss temporary custody arrangements for Oliver. Oliver, who hadn't left my side since I found him, gripped my hand tighter. He stays with me, I said firmly. I'm his aunt. I'll call my lawyer tonight and start the paperwork. Later, after the police left and Ava helped Oliver set up properly in the guest room, I sat alone in my kitchen. The same kitchen where, just 2 nights ago, Celeste had promised no more games. The same kitchen where, 20 years earlier, our mother had assured me Celeste would grow out of her problems if we just gave her enough chances. My phone buzzed again. Grant. Nora? Is it true? The police just called me about Celeste and the bank. It's true, I said, my voice hollow. She's gone. She took Lucas. But Oliver. I swallowed hard. Oliver's safe. He's with me. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Finally, Grant cleared his throat. Keep him safe, Nora. Don't let her near him again. No matter what she says, no matter what she promises. Some people don't deserve second chances. I looked at the empty envelope on my counter, evidence tag still attached, and realized he was right. Some things can't be forgiven. And some people don't want to be saved. A week after Celeste disappeared with Lucas, I found myself sitting across from Grant in my kitchen, both of us staring at a stack of custody paperwork. TV hummed in the background where Oliver watched cartoons with Ava, the same ones he'd watched that first morning. Except now he watched them alone. The police found her car abandoned at a bus station in Memphis, Grant said, running a hand through his graying hair. Security footage shows her and Lucas boarding a bus to New Orleans, but after that… He shrugged, the gesture heavy with defeat. I pushed a mug of coffee toward him. There's something you're not telling me. He pulled out his phone, pulled up a news article. The bank robbery wasn't her first. There were others spread across 3 states. Different names, different disguises, but it was her. He paused. And she wasn't alone. The photo showed grainy security footage of Celeste with a man, both wearing baseball caps and sunglasses. Something about his stance, the way he held himself. That's not you, I said slowly, but he looks like you. My brother Marcus. He got out of prison 6 months ago. Grant's knuckles went white around his coffee mug. I should have seen it coming. He and Celeste always had a connection. The implications hit me like a punch to the gut. All those times Celeste had run to Grant's family gatherings without him, claiming she was keeping the peace after their fights. All those late-night phone calls she claimed were about family emergencies. Does Oliver know about his uncle? No. Marcus went to prison when Oliver was 2. We told the boys he moved to Alaska. Grant's voice cracked. Now he's got Lucas. My baby boy is with a convicted felon and a mother who… He stopped, glancing toward the living room. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Tell Grant to back off. Lucas is fine. We're all fine. I showed Grant the message. His face hardened. She's using our son as leverage. Again. Before I could respond, Oliver appeared in the doorway. Dad? Can I show you something? We followed him upstairs to the guest room. His room now, I supposed. He pulled a shoebox from under the bed, opened it to reveal a stack of postcards. Mom sent these to Grandma Helena, he said quietly. I found them when we were cleaning out our house after the funeral. They're from all over, places Mom said she was going for work. But the dates… I picked up one postcard. Postmark was from Las Vegas, dated during a time Celeste had claimed to be at a teaching conference in Boston. Another from Miami when she told us she was visiting old college friends in Seattle. She's been planning this for years, Grant whispered. Using my brother, stealing money, setting up escape routes? Oliver's voice was small. Is that why she took Lucas? Because he's little and won't remember like I do. Question hung in the air like smoke. I watched Grant struggle for an answer, saw the same helplessness I'd felt my entire life dealing with Celeste. My phone buzzed again. This time a photo, Lucas eating ice cream, smiling at the camera. Behind him, just visible in a mirror's reflection, Marcus's distinctive tattoo on his forearm. They're taunting us, Grant said through clenched teeth. But I was looking at Oliver, at the way his shoulders hunched as he stared at the postcards. At how much he looked like me at that age, watching Celeste get away with everything while I picked up the pieces. No, I said, deleting the photo. They're trying to keep us dancing to their tune. But we're not playing anymore. I turned to Oliver. How would you feel about changing schools? Starting fresh. He looked up, hope flickering across his face. You mean… We move, I said firmly. All of us. Somewhere they won't expect. No more reacting to Celeste's games. No more letting her control our lives. Grant nodded slowly. She'll hate losing her audience. Good, I replied, pulling Oliver close. Because this isn't about her anymore. It's about protecting what's left of our family. For the first time in days, Oliver smiled. It wasn't much, just a small upturn of his lips, but it felt like a victory. A tiny step toward healing the wounds my sister seemed determined to keep reopening. The breaking point came 3 weeks after we decided to move. I was packing Mom's china, the set she'd left me in her will. The one thing Celeste had actually seemed hurt not to receive, when I heard the crash from upstairs. I found Oliver in my bedroom, surrounded by shattered glass and spilled water. Mom's antique perfume bottle, the last birthday gift she'd given me before she died, lay in pieces at his feet. "I'm sorry," he whispered, tears already streaming. "I was just trying to smell it." Like Grandma. Something inside me snapped. Not at Oliver, never at him, but at everything the broken bottle represented. Years of Celeste's chaos, Mom's enabling, the constant expectation that I would be the responsible one, the understanding one, the one who kept picking up the pieces. "It's okay," I said, but my voice shook. "Just go downstairs. Please." As I knelt to clean up the mess, my phone buzzed. Another photo, Lucas at what looked like a carnival, cotton candy in hand. The timestamp showed it was from today. Behind him, a sign for New Orleans French Quarter. I didn't delete this one. Instead, I forwarded it to Detective Martinez with a short message. "They're getting careless." The doorbell rang just as I finished sweeping up the last shards. Through the window, I saw Grant's car in the driveway. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Grant standing there. It was Marcus. "Hey, sis-in-law," he said, that familiar Turner smile spreading across his face. "Mind if I come in?" I blocked the doorway with my body. "Oliver's here." "I know. That's why I came alone." He held up his hands, showing they were empty. "Just want to talk. About Lucas. About Celeste. Aunt Nora." Oliver called from behind me. "Who's at the—" I slammed the door in Marcus's face and locked it. "Oliver, go to Ava's room. Now. Call your father." Through the door, Marcus's voice carried. "She misses him, you know. Both of them. But she had her reasons for choosing Lucas. He's special. Like her." "Special how?" I called back, my hand already on my phone. "You really don't know?" He laughed. "All those times your mother covered for her. All those special doctors and alternative treatments. Did you never wonder what they were really for?" Pieces started falling into place. Celeste's erratic behavior. Her obsession with Lucas's unique way of seeing the world. The way Mom had always insisted Celeste just needed extra support to manage her gifts. "She's sick," I said flatly. "And now she's making Lucas sick too." Sick is such an ugly word. I prefer enlightened. But hey, believe what you want. Just know this, we're taking Oliver too. Soon. Celeste says he has the potential, just needs the right guidance. I heard Oliver's muffled sob from upstairs, followed by Ava's voice telling him to hide in her closet. My hand tightened around my phone. "If you come near my nephew again," I said through clenched teeth, "I will burn your whole world down. And unlike Celeste, I don't make threats I can't follow through on." "Funny," Marcus replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That's exactly what your mother said right before she died. Right before Celeste convinced her to change that will. Wonder what else she convinced her of in those final days." The implication hit me like ice water. "You're lying." "Am I?" Ask Oliver about the pills he found in Celeste's bag. Ask him what Grandma looked like that last night, when Celeste insisted on being alone with her. His footsteps retreated down the porch steps. "But do it quick. Clock's ticking, sis-in-law." I waited until I heard his car pull away before racing upstairs. Found Oliver curled up in Ava's closet, clutching his phone. "Dad's coming," he whispered. Did you know that was Uncle Marcus?" I pulled him close, feeling him tremble. "Oliver, those pills you found in your mom's bag, what did they look like?" He described them perfectly. The same pills that had been missing from Mom's bedside table after she died. The death that everyone had called natural causes. Until now. Detective Martinez set the evidence bag on his desk, Mom's pill bottle, retrieved from where Oliver had hidden it in his shoebox of postcards. "The autopsy was inconclusive," he said. "Even if we prove these were in Celeste's possession, we can't prove she killed our mother," I cut in, my voice hollow. "And now she's after Oliver. We don't know that for certain." He leaned forward. "But there's something else. The bank robberies? They weren't random. Each one targeted safety deposit boxes belonging to former patients of a Dr. Samuel Chen. "Mom's psychiatrist," I whispered. "The one who treated Celeste when we were teenagers. And Lucas now, apparently." He slid a file across the desk. "Dr. Chin specialized in children with supposed supernatural abilities. Your mother consulted him about Celeste for years." The file contained photographs. Celeste as a teenager, surrounded by strange equipment. Lucas in similar setups dated just months ago. Notes about enhanced perception and unique neural patterns. My phone buzzed. "Celeste, remember when Mom said I was special?" She was right. Lucas is too. Oliver could be if you'd just let him go. Another message followed immediately. "Check your email." I did. There was a video attachment. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Showed Mom in her hospital bed, pale and weak. Celeste's voice came from behind the camera. "Tell Nora what you told me." "About the money." "I was wrong," Mom whispered. "Celeste needs it more. The inheritance, the house. She has special needs. Nora will understand. She always understands." The video ended. Martinez watched me carefully. "That was filmed the night before your mother died." "She was drugged," I said. Confused. "Celeste manipulated her, just like she's trying to manipulate Oliver now." Speaking of Oliver, Martinez hesitated. "We got a hit on facial recognition. He was spotted at a bus station in Baton Rouge this morning." My heart stopped. "That's impossible. He's at school." I dropped him off myself. But when I called the school, Oliver hadn't shown up for class. His backpack was gone from its usual spot by the door at home. In its place was a note in his careful handwriting. "Aunt Nora, Mom says Lucas needs me. She says we're both special like her, and you'll try to stop us from being who we really are. I'm sorry about Grandma's perfume bottle. I'm sorry about everything." I sank onto the couch, the note crumpling in my fist. All this time, I'd been so focused on protecting Oliver from Celeste that I hadn't seen how she was poisoning his mind from afar. Just like she'd poisoned Mom. My phone buzzed again. A photo of Oliver and Lucas together, both smiling, somewhere I didn't recognize. Celeste's message followed. "They're where they belong now. With someone who understands them. Who won't try to make them normal." "We can track the phone," Martinez said, but I barely heard him. Because behind the boys in the photo was a familiar piece of furniture, Mom's antique writing desk. The one that had disappeared from her house right after she died. The one containing decades of family documents, medical records, and financial information. "She's at Mom's lake house," I realized. The one Mom sold right before she got sick. Celeste must have bought it through a shell company. "We'll get a warrant." "There's no time." I grabbed my keys. "She won't stay there long. And if she gets Oliver into Dr. Chen's program." "Dr. Caldwell." Martinez's voice stopped me at the door. "If what you're saying about your mother is true, your sister is dangerous. Let us handle this." But I was already walking away. Because he didn't understand. Celeste wasn't just dangerous, she was desperate. And desperate people would do anything to protect their delusions. I would know. After all, I'd spent my whole life desperately believing I could save her. This time, though, I wasn't going to save Celeste. I was going to stop her. The lake house looked exactly as I remembered, except for the fresh tire tracks in the gravel driveway. Mom's old wind chimes still hung from the porch, their gentle tinkling at odds with the tension in the air. I found them in the sunroom. Oliver and Lucas sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by papers covered in strange symbols. Celeste stood at Mom's writing desk, sorting through files. "I wondered how long it would take you," she said without turning around. "Oliver, take your brother upstairs." "They're not going anywhere." I stepped into the room. "It's over, Celeste." Detective Martinez is on his way with a warrant." She finally turned, and I barely recognized her. Her eyes had that familiar fevered gleam, but there was something else there now, something cold and calculating that hadn't been there before. "You never understood, did you?" She gestured to the papers around the boys. "Mom knew. She saw our potential. Why do you think she spent all that money on Dr. Chen's treatments? She enabled your delusions because it was easier than getting you real help." "Delusions?" Celeste left. "Oliver, show your aunt what you can do." Before I could stop him, Oliver closed his eyes in concentration. The wind chimes outside went silent. Then, one by one, the papers around him began to rise into the air. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "What did you do to him?" "I helped him embrace who he is. Who we all are." She moved toward Lucas, who was watching the floating papers with wide eyes. "Mom tried to suppress my abilities because of you. Your jealousy, your concerns. But she understood in the end. That's why she changed the will." "After you drugged her," I said flatly. "Just like you're drugging them." Papers dropped suddenly as Oliver's head snapped up. "Mom? What's she talking about?" Celeste's face hardened. "Don't listen to her. She's trying to confuse you just like she confused Grandma." "The pills in your bag," Oliver said slowly. "The ones like Grandma's." "They're medicine," Celeste snapped. "To help you focus your abilities." "Lucas takes them too, don't you, sweetie?" But Lucas was staring at the fallen papers, thumb in mouth, tears rolling down his cheeks. "They make my head hurt," he whispered. Something shifted in Oliver's expression. He stood up, moving away from the scattered papers. You said Grandma understood at the end. But she was scared. I heard her crying that night. Oliver, she begged you to stop. To let her sleep." His voice cracked. "I didn't understand then, but you killed her, didn't you?" Temperature in the room seemed to drop. Celeste's hand moved toward her pocket. "Don't," I warned, but she was already pulling out a small bottle. "1 dose," she said, her voice eerily calm. "That's all it takes to unlock their potential. To make them understand." She uncapped the bottle. "Lucas, come here." "No." Oliver grabbed his brother's hand. "Aunt Nora, please." I lunged forward just as Celeste reached for Lucas. We collided hard, the bottle flying from her hand and shattering against the desk. Pills scattered across the floor. "Run!" I shouted to the boys. "Outside now." They bolted, but as I tried to follow, Celeste grabbed my hair, yanking me back. "You always ruin everything," she snarled. "Just like you ruined things with Mom." We grappled, crashing into the desk. Papers went flying, medical records, bank statements, and underneath them all, a handwritten letter in Mom's shaky script. "My dearest Nora, I'm so sorry. I should have protected you both better. Celeste needs help I can't give her anymore. Don't let her." The rest was illegible, smeared with what looked like tears or spilled water. Celeste saw it too. For a moment, she froze, something like recognition flickering across her face. That's when we heard the sirens. "It's not too late," I said quietly. "Get help. Real help. For the boys' sake." She looked at me for a long moment, tears filling her eyes. Then she smiled, that same sweet smile she'd used to charm our mother, our teachers, everyone who'd ever tried to help her. "You're right," she whispered. "I'm sorry." Then she shoved me hard against the desk and ran. By the time I recovered my balance, she was gone. But this time she'd left something behind. Her children. And the truth. 6 months after Celeste disappeared, I stood in my backyard watching Oliver teach Lucas how to pitch a baseball. The younger boy's thumb hadn't found its way to his mouth in weeks, and Oliver's nightmares had finally begun to fade. "He's getting better at that," Grant said, joining me on the patio. We'd fallen into an unexpected co-parenting rhythm, sharing custody of both boys while the police continued their search for Celeste. The therapist says they both are. I handed him a coffee. Oliver asked about her yesterday. First time in months. Grant nodded, watching Lucas miss another catch. And he wanted to know if she was sick like Mom said or bad like the police think. I sighed. I told him sometimes people can be both. The investigation had revealed more than we'd expected. Dr. Chen's treatment program was under federal investigation for illegal drug trials. Mom's autopsy had been reopened, though the results were still inconclusive. And Celeste's trail led to a dozen different cities, each with its own string of crimes and confused victims who remembered a charming woman who seemed to know things she shouldn't. "Aunt Nora!" Oliver called out. "Watch this." He threw the ball high, and this time Lucas caught it cleanly. The boy's face lit up with genuine pride, no supernatural theatrics needed. Later that evening, as I helped Oliver with his homework, he pulled something from his backpack, a worn envelope I recognized from Mom's writing desk. "I found this when we were packing up the lake house," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure if I should show you, but..." Inside was a letter dated 3 days before Mom died. "My dearest Nora, by the time you read this, I fear it will be too late for me. But perhaps not too late for Celeste or her boys. I enabled her for too long, believing love meant protecting her from consequences. I was wrong. You were always the strong one, not because you were perfect, but because you faced your imperfections with grace. I'm sorry I didn't tell you more often how proud I was of that strength. Take care of them, Nora. Not like I did, but like you would have done all along. With love and regret, Mom." "There's something else," Oliver said, pulling out a small notebook. "Grandma's diary. She wrote about Mom's abilities, about how she thought they were real at first, but then realized." "Realized what?" "That Mom believed in them so much she made other people believe too, like she did with me and the papers." He looked down. "I can't really make things float, can I?" I pulled him close. "No, honey. But you can do something more important. You can see the truth, even when it's hard." My phone buzzed, another unknown number. But this time, instead of photos or threats, there was just a short message. "You were right. Getting help. Don't look for me. Take care of my boys better than she took care of us." I showed Grant the message later, after the boys were asleep. "Think it's really her?" he asked. "Does it matter?" I watched Oliver and Lucas through the window, peaceful in their shared bedroom. They're where they need to be now. And you? Are you where you need to be? I thought about Mom's letter, about Celeste's message, about all the years I'd spent trying to fix a family that was broken long before I understood why. "I'm exactly where I should have been all along," I said. "Right here." That night, I dreamed of wind chimes and floating papers, of pills that promised miracles and letters that spoke hard truths. But when I woke, the only magic I needed was the sound of children laughing downstairs, the smell of breakfast cooking, and the simple miracle of a family healing, not through supernatural powers or dramatic gestures, but through the quiet strength of choosing love over fear, truth over delusion, and forgiveness over revenge. Even if some of that forgiveness would always remain a work in progress,